So, or random quantum interactions created a being, many beings that have a sense of right and wrong and a sense of purpose, and it all just happened by chance.
I added this little section here, and it just this primordial soup idea has had legs for over 100 years now, and it's in all the biology textbooks, and it's never gone anywhere. But if you go and look at how this thing got started, there was a guy named JBS Haldane in the 1920s, and he mixed some oil and water, which it shouldn't be too fascinating of a thing, and watched them separate into their own little globules, and thought, well, this is how it got started. And he actually called it the primordial soup. So this, the early conditions of after the earth cooled, this is how it would have gotten done. And that's where that word came from, or that phrase, primordial soup. And then this guy named Harold Urey in the 50s came along and thought, I think the original, he doesn't have any proof of this or evidence of this, but he just decided that the original primary elements on the cooling Earth, which he also has no proof of, were methane and hydrogen. And so he started doing some zapping of these elements and produced, with some electricity, and he produced some, basic amino acids, which are the building blocks of protein, obviously. And that kind of revivified the primordial soup idea, which died until a lot of other scientists got a hold of it and said, oh yeah, that's pretty commonplace, and we see that all the time. So it's just a natural process in nature that certain elements combine to form amino acids under certain conditions. There's nothing surprising or unique about it. And, as far as we're aware, new forms of consciousness aren't arising all over the place due to these interactions.
Right.
This is the pond scum primordial soup idea. It comes basically from these two guys. So in both cases, it was quickly shown that there was nothing special about what either one had done, but their idea had got, people took hold of this idea, and it's still the prevailing, theory out there anytime we talk about how life emerged on Earth.
It's pretty funny.
We've seen this before in other talks we've done, but we'll not talk about those today. But yeah, there's nothing impressive about what either of these two guys did, and it doesn't even come close to demonstrating this is how life or consciousness got going on Earth.
Right. Okay.
So there we have it. What's next?
So yeah, this is kind of like the science's understanding of consciousness, right? It kind of like doesn't lead you anywhere, doesn't give you any value, and holds this total absurdity that it just basically emerged out of the Big Bang and primordial soup, and that's where everything came from. And we just think it's a little strange for that to be your first belief, right? To stick with that and hold that as a belief is a bit strange, right?
Right.
And it's going to lead you with a lot of questions. Like you're going to be like, well, what's consciousness? Right. So do you want to go into this, Brad, about
sure.
Consciousness being, the mainstream idea that emerges out of all the stuff that we've talked so far is to be conscious equals to be aware, right? That's where it lands you. But we want to bring in some new stuff. So go into it, Brad.
So yeah, just quickly to back up, not to completely, the mainstream academic scientists talk a lot about a lot of interesting subjects about what consciousness is, right? They've evaluated it, and they look at it, and it's very, mysterious, and they don't understand it. And, it leads to, where does love come from? And why do we get hungry? There's a lot of interesting things that they talk about. So it's not to completely take away from it, but as soon as they hit this wall of the chemical wall, I'll call it, it would seem like they would be interested in expanding out a little bit. And I think some have, right? There are several academic scientists who have branched into where we're headed in this podcast. Donald Hoffman being the one who's most noteworthy. So there are some, but I think what it comes down to is they can't find funding, they can't find grants, they may not get promoted, they may not get tenure, they may get blackballed out of their profession. There's a lot of risks to them branching into where we're going to be heading with this talk today. So, in fairness to them, they seem to be yoked and censored in a way that they have to stick with the chemical idea. Some of them, maybe most of them. I don't know. Anyway,
Right.
so this idea, right? This, obviously conscious is the root of consciousness, and so they seem like they're one and the same. And so the kind of the mainstream idea we have here is the state of being consciousness is that your outer ego mind is awake and aware. It's online, right? So there's some association with that being conscious. Like that's consciousness when you're awake. So when you go to sleep or you get knocked unconscious, right now you've lost your consciousness, right? You're now unconscious when you're sleeping. So so the indication is that you lack consciousness when you're knocked out or sleeping, right? That's the implication when you use those words that way. But at the same time, we all know that your body is fully conscious while you're sleeping, right? It's able to keep breathing and keep the heart beating and digesting and whatever it does while you're sleeping. So there's some form of consciousness. I mean, at this point, we almost have to take the word consciousness and make it synonymous with intelligence, right? Because something intelligent is going on while you're out cold.
Right.
And of course, the fallback is this idea. It's the autonomic nervous system, which is beyond intelligent. It's beyond our intelligence, right? We can't do as men what the autonomic nervous system does for us. So it's actually more intelligent than us when you get right down to it.
Right.
But
the
my
materialists
suggestion,
say that the automatic, if I can just add, the materialists say the autonomic nervous system is just like this, ongoing interaction of chemicals and physics, right? Not consciousness, nothing spiritual, nothing primary, just molecules interacting with each other.
Right. Molecules that haven't been proven to exist. Yeah, it's just metabolic processes is what they say, right?
Right.
And we'll get into some deeper aspects of this in a moment here, but so yeah, I got that implication in there, right? When you're asleep, you're unconscious or you lack consciousness. Now some don't say that because we'll get right to this spot here where we say, you have dreams while you're quote unquote unconscious, right? We've all had weird dreams, and nightmares, and great dreams, and who knows, all different types. While we appear to lack consciousness, so something is having those dreams, isn't it? Some form of consciousness is having those dreams. Anyway, it sets up a lot of problems it should be clear that consciousness does not equal being conscious. I think that was the point we were trying to make here, right?
Yeah, I think what we're saying is the most mainstream theory points to, like, leads you to this place that consciousness is this thing where you're awake and aware, right? You're conscious of the stuff around you.
All right.
But then that just puts you in another problem, and you're like, but what? Yeah, and then what?